Game criticism is in a weird spot. I guess it always has been, really. And I have a vested interest in it for some reason. I guess you could say what I do here on this channel a lot of the time is criticism, but from my perspective, I don't view it that way. I just like to view my videos and my game recommendations as just like a recommendation to a buddy. I never want to feel like I'm coming off as too objective or academic. I just want to speak my mind and let you know about a few things that I think are cool and hope that you might find something here that you might like yourself. And I think that that's the shape that reviews have come to over time, much less objective, or, well, I guess they've never really actually been objective, they've always been subjective. You can't write about something critically from a perspective that's anything other than your own. But let's say in like the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era, that's when reviews felt a lot more like a Consumer Reports review. They often functioned more as guides to determine if a game was worth your money, rather than digging deep into its more artistic merits. The goal of what a review should do has always been debated. Personally, I find delving into the hows and whys behind a game are far more interesting than just making qualitative assessments about them, but that's just me. But I think reviews were in a spot at one point where they wanted to present themselves, at least, in a way that came off less as a personal opinion. But then there's like another layer on top of all of this, which is criticism from like a form factor, as if the medium itself is being insulted by some design flaw. Something like, is the frame rate busted here? You know, that sort of fundamental issue with a game. Video game criticism has been a weirdly important thing in my headspace. I know I'm the coolest guy around, but a lot of that comes from when I was in high school. I would go to sites like GameSpot and check out what games got good reviews, and that ended up shaping a lot of my tastes. But during that time, there was actually a pretty big controversy. You know, a lot of these really angry capital G gamers online have always lobbied stuff like, oh, publishers just paid for a good review, that's why this person's saying all these positive things about it, and that's never the truth. But the closest that I've seen it come to being the truth is with this whole GameSpot Kane & Lynch situation. So, let's go over it. Kane & Lynch came out and Ubisoft paid for some ad space on GameSpot. Then there was a really honest review from Jeff Gerstmann that was pretty negative. And then the higher-ups at GameSpot were like, hey, what the hell? This company is paying for the ads on the site. We shouldn't be running reviews that are bad-talking the hand that feeds, you know? And then Jeff Gerstmann just flatly refused to adjust his review in a pretty honorable way, and he ended up getting fired over it. It was a whole big deal at the time. It was like the biggest controversy in game criticism that I think I could think of, maybe short of the plagiarism stuff that happened with IGN a little bit back. And then after Jeff got fired, he had a really stellar reputation, and he had one before, but now it's blown him up into this critical darling at this point. So then he started Giant Bomb with a few other people from GameSpot, and then that became a new outlet that continued criticism there. But over time, they became less of a game criticism outlet and more of a personality-led outlet, which is kind of emblematic of where all of game criticism went. Another significant aspect of online criticism involves the major review aggregate sites like Metacritic and OpenCritic, as well as like the movie sites like Rotten Tomatoes. They collect reviews from a bunch of different places from all across the internet and smash them all together to come up with and generate an overall score. A lot of people interpret that score in the wrong way though. Let's just say something has like a 70 on Rotten Tomatoes. That doesn't mean that the movie is 70% good. That means that 70% of the critics liked it enough to be comfortable recommending it. There's a lot of side-eyeing these aggregate sites though, and I see why. For example, there's been instances of publishers using sites like Metacritic to withhold bonuses from developers, and that's not cool. Holding back some of the pay of the developers to see how their project review is pretty fucked. There are loads of factors that are totally beyond the dev team's control when tackling big projects. And it's fucked up how many of these big publishers have pulled this move at some point. It seems like it's been happening less and less frequently lately, but who's to say? They could still be doing this stuff behind the scenes. Anyway, this isn't me going on a rant and trying to take down these sites because, let's face it, I use them too. Sometimes it's just convenient to hop on one of those sites, glance at a review score, and think, oh cool, it looks like people generally are into it. So yeah, it's a handy system, but it's definitely not perfect. Now on to the more analytical type of critique. This is the stuff that I think has the most value in modern criticism. It's all super subjective and typically doesn't try to push that it isn't. It has this way of sparking new ideas and perspectives that you might not have stumbled onto by yourself. It has a way of guiding you to think in different ways, which can be pretty eye-opening, though it does come with a bit of baggage for me. It often feels like there's this academic vibe that's attached to all of it, which can feel a little bit elitist and a bit alienating, you know? It's like, why does everything have to be so stuffy and spoken with such verbose prose? I'm not trying to be like anti-intellectual or anything here. It just sometimes feels like they're trying to project this certain image, and honestly, it rubs me the wrong way. I guess I just have this personal allergy to snobbiness, but in analytical criticism, that kind of vibe can definitely creep in. What I do appreciate about analytical criticism, though, is its ability to recognize value in even flawed games. And I think that more people need to train themselves to do this more often. I'd say a really good example of this is if you look at Jacob Geller's video about Wanted Dead. His approach in that video is really great because despite the game's tons of issues, he manages to highlight its merits, which in my opinion is the greatest thing you can do in criticism, appreciating the positives while also addressing the flaws. Finding appreciation seems to take a backseat in a lot of criticism. It's like we're quick to point out flaws and sometimes forget to acknowledge the good stuff. It's easy to get caught up in all of the negativity, especially with all the bad stuff happening around us. Focusing solely on the negatives can feel almost like an instinctual, animalistic response. But you know, I'd say most of the time, we're not in mortal danger. Usually, I hope so. So I think people need to be able to appreciate some of these things that are lesser refined, such as Wanted Dead. But if there's one thing that I really wanted to get to in this video, it's talking about how overwhelmed by choice people are. People really love to whine, I'd say. If I were to paint a picture of the typical self-identifying proud gamer, I'd say that they're whiny, entitled little piss babies, and sure, maybe back in the day when they were pre-teens that might have been more expected, but these motherfuckers are full grown at this point. If there was some malicious element to whatever these people get all upset about, I'd get it, but that's rarely the case. They just need to chill out because there's just so much out there. Why waste their energy complaining about something when there's 100 other things that are specifically for them, that they would enjoy if they just opened their eyes up and moved past the things that they seem to want to whine about? We're at the point in video games, and a lot of media actually, where, I'm in my early 30s. There's a lot of other people around my age at this point who are making really interesting art, and it's pretty much just targeted at people like me. There's so much stuff out there that's specifically aligned with my interests that I have nothing to complain about, because there's just a gross amount of stuff out there. Games are being made by people who grew up with games, and I think that's been a shift that's happened in the last 10 years or so. Many of the people who are the heads of these developers are putting a lot of creative work into stuff. They know what to do because they grew up with games. They know how games work, and that allows them to make more stuff that's meant for people who are like them. And that's me, and I assume, if you're watching this video, that's probably you. I appreciate there's just so much out there for me. Why would I spend my time talking about things that I don't care for? Just look at my backlog here. This is the backlog of games that I have, and I haven't gotten around to, that I would like to get around to. It's an overwhelming amount of games. And I go over this list pretty often and trim stuff out. This is getting pretty refined down to just the stuff that I think is extremely up my alley. And let's just say, even if something looks like I would like it from the outside and I boot it up and I don't like it, I'll turn it off, play something else. There's so many things, and I'm not a rich guy. I didn't spend $1 billion on these games. You can buy games for pretty cheap as long as you're willing to wait. Your Steam wishlist is your friend. Like Humble Bundle, Fanatical, you can get games for pennies, literally. So branch out. I know as soon as you do, you'll find more stuff that you would definitely like, so don't waste your time complaining about everything. Well, I know this video doesn't have much of a thesis to it, and it's kind of me just scatterbrained thoughts all over the place, but I've been thinking about all this stuff a lot lately, and I hope you liked the video. Oh, and I actually hit 1,000 subscribers, and I think that's super awesome. Thank you so much for making that happen. I've been working pretty hard to make that happen. Yeah, so subscribe and do all the stuff. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thank you 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 for watching.